So today I'm going to go into just briefly the false hope economy, or the false hope industry that exists out there. Now, if you don't know what I mean when I say the false hope industry, and make no mistake, it is an actual industry of people who offer huge amounts of false hope, and they charge for this. You give them money. Think of it like this. Anytime rule of thumb, usually when you see a video of somebody who's saying, yeah, hey, be like me, I'm going to show you my secret to how I made money, became a billionaire by the time I was 14, and look how many Bugattis I drive every day. Yeah, those are usually scams, and they're part of what's called a false hope economy. This is on the heels of like a couple of different messages I've read here and there, and so I'm indirectly answering a few questions and some thoughts that have been ruminating in my head for quite some time. And I've been contented for a long time to just kind of leave it alone and let people run their scams. But now it's becoming so obvious that so much of this stuff is a scam that it's time to maybe say something about it. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this, the false hope economy. It's not just the different, actually, here's how it works. You're all familiar with the background check scam, right? So for those of you who don't know how that scam works, it's like this. Let's say that you want to go get a job, and you send in a resume, and somebody there at some point contacts you back and says, hey, you've made it to the second round, now do a background check. And then you log onto some website that they probably own, and you pay $15 or whatever it is, or $30 or whatever it is now for a background check. There probably wasn't a job in the first place. What happened was you gave them $30 to $50 or whatever it is they charge you for the background check. It's like they do it with rental properties all the time. It's a whole industry unto itself, where you'll pay $50 a head or $75. I've heard all kinds of numbers for background checks, and it's its own little economy all unto itself. And where these industries come from they're birthed out of the middleman economy. The U.S. has this false hope middleman economy. I'll give you an example. We all know the numbers, right? How many houses are for sale? How many single-family houses are for sale in this country right now? Something like 1.8 million. How many real estate agents are there in this country? Like 2 million, 2.5. Depends on who you ask. So your number of people outweighs all of that. And it's all these people that are in the middle of all this. Now, all these people want to try and make livings off of it, but no one's actually doing any of the building. The trucking industry is the same way. There's more brokers and agents brokering loads to broker to other brokers who are brokering them to other brokers who broker them to a guy who knows a guy who brokers to another agent who eventually calls a truck driver. And every one of those guys wants to take a chunk out of that load. So a load that maybe that's supposed to pay $8,000 or $10,000 total, right? By the time that gets to that truck, it's $3,600. That's how bad it's getting. And it's all these people in the middle and so the people that are doing the actual work, right? They're losing all their money. They're losing, so not only are you losing money due to inflation, not only is the government stealing your money from you, well, actually, excuse me, especially if you're an employee, your employer is stealing that money from you and then giving it to, the government, who gives it to Zelensky or Israel or whoever's blowing anybody up this week. That's what's happening. So that's how this works. That's all these people that are in the middle of all of these transactions, and everybody wants to make big money, but nobody's actually doing any of the real work. Another thing that you can look for, this is another telltale sign, is how well-spoken somebody is. I don't mean well-spoken as in being able to kind of explain themselves, but I mean their pace and timing and tempo, and it's fast and it's very mellifluous is the only word I can think of that so accurately describes it. Those are trained actors, and they've got great lighting. They've got the perfect setup to draw you in. They're in the business of influencing you to go to their website for their free course, which it then which tells you just enough money to get into the other course, which eventually then you go to the seminar where you spend $500 or $600, where that's an upsell to go to the retreat, which is which is an all expenses paid retreat in the mountains somewhere where they're going to teach you the secret to wealth. It's all expenses paid by you. They just don't tell you that. And then when you get there, then it's an upsell for even more money. And this kind of thing is very common. I can think of one guy in particular right now who has vanished off the face of the earth where I am. Very famous guy in this area has apparently disappeared. Well, because it's endless false hope. Anybody telling you that you can just make piles of money and not have to own anything or be responsible for anything, dude, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. That's just not how it works. Remember a video I did where I told you who makes money in this world? People who own shit. That's who makes the money. People who own it. So they also take the responsibility. But the people who own it are the ones who are going to make the money. So so it's like the most recent one I'm seeing now is, oh, look, I made millions of dollars by the time, I'm retired at the age of 22. Don't you want to be like me and drive around in my 10 Bugattis? Because I started, I bought a storage facility, storage units. That market's going to flood too, as with all these markets, they will flood because they're just getting you to go into these institutions. By the way, just so you know how this works, they get you to go into these banks or institutions to borrow this money. Why does a bank loan you money? Not because of the deal. In like 99% of all cases, why does the bank loan you money? The bank loans you money because you have more to lose than the bank does. That's it. That's the trick. That's the whole trick right there. I just showed you how to do the magic. Show the banker that you're going to lose more than they will, and they'll do that deal. So, what happens is they convince people who've got $500,000 or $2 million boomer houses. They go walk into a bank. The bank, says, yeah, hey, we'll do that deal, and then you go buy, some storage units. They don't really care if your storage unit business doesn't really work. They don't care if it makes any money. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is that you have more to lose than they do, and that's how that works. So, and you can only do that for so long. Remember, at a certain point, there's a market saturation. Just like and it happens in any market. My old work, if you look up, you can go on YouTube and look up financial physics, and you'll see some of the older videos I did where I explain this. Any market can have a saturation point. The only market that doesn't have the saturation point is the false hope industry, right? That's where it's guys telling you, no, look, hey, I've got the answer to it. I've got this, I've got that. Look, unless they're telling you how to go conquer land, and I meant what I said in every sense of the word, because that's exactly what it takes, is straight conquest of land, and then you build something on that land that is actually productive. Whether it's a farm, whether it's a facility that you're building something, it doesn't make an electricity plant, whatever it is, unless you're doing that, it's probably not going to make any real money, and you're not going to own any of it. You're just going to be another one of the cogs in their machine. Like I said the other day, why do the so-called rich want inflation? They have to have inflation, because if you actually owned your house, your car, and your life, if you had all that stuff, right, and they tell you to do something that you don't want to do, you say fuck off. You say fuck off, dude. I'll go do something else. Just go piss up a rope, dude. I'm done with you. That's what happens. And they can't have that. They gotta have people who can't say no. They have to have people that are constantly owing or beholding to someone. That's the requirement. That's how this whole thing works. So be on the lookout for the false hope economy, and it's everywhere. It starts with religions. I just had this conversation actually with a guy yesterday. I helped him move. It's a friend of a friend. I was helping him move, and he's an older gentleman, so I was happy to help out. And he was talking about the church, that he was going to, and he said something about like, well, yeah, they have lots of kids, they've been having lots of kids. I said, well, yeah, some churches really encourage to have lots of kids. And he's like, well, yeah. I said, yeah, it's because what would you rather have? 10% off of what one guy does, or 10% off of each of his kids? Right? This is just math. That's how it works. This is just how the numbers work. This is why I've said, Western Christianity is on the ropes, and Western Christianity is probably doomed, because nobody's having 4, 5, 6 kids. Everybody else is, except for the Western Christians. And I'm just saying this as an outside observer, as an atheist. I'm just telling you guys this. I think you guys are doomed unless you deal with that. But maybe you will, maybe you won't. Anyway, be on the lookout for the false hope economy, and let me know some examples that you've seen of the false hope economy that's been trying to take advantage of you or your friends.